Have you had your vaccination yet? Should every Christian and every church get vaccinated for the conflict virus? The virus I'm talking about doesn't attack the body. It infects relationships. It spreads quietly, destroys trust, and divides churches. Its name, gossip.
Welcome to Gleaning Mustard Seeds with Jerrie Barber. Mr. Barber is a preacher, a ventriloquist, a barefoot runner, and writes 2 blogs. When Jerrie communicates, he encourages people, try not to learn very much. Find a mustard seed. In the next few minutes, try not to learn very much. Look for something you can do to move a mountain, remove a stumbling block, or provide a stepping stone for yourself or someone else. And now, here's Jerrie with this week's mustard seed.
The virus that infects a family, church, business, or softball team is gossip. Gossip is present when there's conflict. Proverbs 26:20, without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, quarreling stops. Ask a personal question. Do I need to eliminate this from my life? You know some people who need to work on this, but you may think, surely you don't mean me. That was the reaction of the disciples when Jesus spoke of his betrayer. In Mark 14:17-19, we read, when evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. While they were reclining at the table eating, he said, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me. They were saddened, and one by one they said to him, surely you don't mean me. Even though they thought it wouldn't be one of them, before the night was over, one would betray Jesus, one would deny Jesus 3 times, and all would forsake him when he was arrested. If I have a problem with this, how can I deal with it? If I am in Christ and Jesus is in me, I bear fruit. He said, John 15:5-6, I am the vine, you're the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. The fruit every Christian should bear is the fruit of the Spirit, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. James said, but no man can tame the tongue. We can't tame the tongue, but we can train the tongue with the Spirit's help and self-control. This is one of the advantages of fasting. After going without food for 1 or 2 days, I began to ask, what are some other things I could do if I followed through on my decision rather than what felt best? Let's keep this in mind as we explore the problem of gossip. What is gossip? Gossip is the sharing of information about someone when they are not present that is not yours to share. It usually involves personal details, private matters, or unverified stories. A few traits that often mark gossip. It's about others rather than ourselves. It's behind their back. The person being discussed isn't present. It may be harmful, information that can damage reputations, relationships, or trust. It is unnecessary. The information isn't shared to help, but to entertain, criticize, or elevate oneself. It may be unverified, sometimes true, sometimes half-true, sometimes entirely false. We need to distinguish between sharing news that would be constructive, with permission, or for a good purpose, and gossip, which is idle, careless, or harmful talk. Well, where do Christians learn to gossip? When you find conflict in a group, someone spreading gossip, they think they're doing the right thing. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. Proverbs 21:2. Well, it's the truth. Somebody needs to be speaking up. If I feel this way, I'm going to say it. At least I'm honest. Rarely do people come up with an original idea. My guess is that they've heard others gossip and are imitating them. It might be good to check with 3 sources that begin with the letter P. Parents. Parents have rules about speaking of their home. Usually, family rules are unconscious, unspoken, but understood. They're often learned by imitation rather than instruction. So, if Mother and Daddy talk about elders, preachers, song leaders, politicians, friends, associates, and others in a derogatory way, it'd be normal for their children to follow their example. What harm does it do? This article appeared in the Nashville Tennessean, July 17, 2002, page 20. Dear Abby, when I was growing up, my mother and the other ladies in our church were extremely polite to each other. However, when one of them wasn't present, the others would talk behind their back. They would compliment a woman to her face and criticize her as soon as she walked away. Mother always defended this behavior as a harmless pastime. I don't know whether it hurt the people who were the butt of the gossip, but I know it harmed me and the children who were listening. Their behavior taught me not to trust anyone, especially people who are being nice to my face. Instead, I trusted abusive people because I thought they were being honest. I ended up running with a bad crowd and found myself dating abusive men because I couldn't trust polite guys. When someone complimented me, I didn't believe it, so I never developed self-confidence. I was afraid people were laughing at me behind my back. I had trouble making friends with other girls because I was afraid to open up and reveal my feelings, for fear that whatever I said would become grist for the gossip mill. After a year of therapy, I finally found the self-confidence I lacked. My sisters haven't been so lucky. Both are married to abusive men. Abby, please inform your readers that there's nothing harmless about gossip, especially to children who may overhear it. Signed, Gaining Trust in Georgia. Second P, preachers. Preachers have been my heroes, but preachers aren't perfect. If I spend time around a preacher or a group of preachers who constantly discuss other preachers who are unsound, criticizing how godly and unfair elders are, and how brethren are mistreating them, it'd be easy to imitate their behavior. After all, they're good, sound, faithful, gospel preachers. Gossiping preachers may teach the truth on every issue except how to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. If a person criticizes your child who is a Christian, a good response would be, "What did my child say when you talked to him?" One thing my son resented growing up was a few people telling on him when he did something they thought was inappropriate, unwise, or wrong. He said, "Daddy, I'm 17 years old, 6 feet 3 inches tall. I've been a Christian 5 years. Why don't they talk to me first?" Good question. This is one preacher I wish had had more wisdom and courage and then asked those people to follow Jesus' instruction. Third P, pastors, elders. When elders believe their role is to resolve every issue within the church and address personal problems that aren't their concern at this time, they may be setting an example of how not to interact with people as Jesus taught. A good response when someone tells you about a person who's mistreated them and wants you to fix it is, "What did he say when you talked with him?" If the answer is, "I haven't talked to him," your response might be, "Jesus told me not to talk to him yet. You go first. Then, if you and he agree I might be helpful, I'll be glad to assist. You first, me second." When elders receive complaints about the preacher without holding members accountable for addressing their concerns to the preacher, they're bypassing Jesus' instruction in Matthew 18:15. Jesus didn't say, Moreover, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone, unless he's the preacher. Then the elders will do your work for you. The best way for the preacher to understand what a lot of people are upset about is for a lot of people to go to him one at a time and explain to him in a spirit of love what they're unhappy about. The volume of information will make an impression, whether it's about his preaching, attitude, work ethic, or lack of attention to people who need his help. I have a no anonymous criticism clause in my contract, which reads, all criticism of Jerrie Barber goes directly to Jerrie Barber, and he will welcome it. Jerrie Barber does not accept anonymous criticism. Jesus did not say, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone, unless he's the preacher.
Thank you for listening to Gleaning Mustard Seeds with Jerrie Barber. If you found a mustard seed, send a text or email with the link to a friend. This podcast was brought to you by Gail Barber's book, Fleecy Clouds, One Woman's Story of Surviving and Thriving After Childhood Abuse, by Gail Champion Barber and Alice Sullivan. Gail writes in the introduction to her book, I hope you find a blessing in this book that will add to your life and you can share with others. A difficult beginning didn't ruin the remainder of my life, and it doesn't need to ruin yours either. You can order your book from Amazon. There is a link in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Jerrie looks forward to next week as we continue to collect and plant mustard seeds.